Everybody, Questwise here, and we are on the verge of entering into a new decade. 2020, at the time of the filming of this video, is literally a couple of days away. And as I've been sort of reflecting over the past year of the channel and where I want to take the channel into the future, I've decided that next year, year 2020, we will be going back to basics. I want to explore. Now, we'll be doing a lot of other stuff. We'll be doing a lot of other normal reviews on things like miniatures and current games and different products and stuff. But majority, the main focus, the main sort of series of videos will be going back to basics. And what I mean by that is I want to go back to the roots of the hobby and explore things like the origins, the history of the OSR movement that's popular, the ideas of what is a OSR game, how those are played, how those are constructed, how those have influenced other games out there on the market, how to construct your own worlds in an OSR style, how to create games or bring new ideas to your game that are sort of OSR inspired. And for those of you out there who are not OSR, you don't know what OSR is, or not OSR fans, I decided that there's no real one definition, but I decided to go with the one that Wikipedia had up on their page. And the OSR is the old school revival or the old school renaissance. It's been known as both. It is a movement that draws inspiration from the earliest days of tabletop RPGs of the 1970s. These were all made possible in the year 2000, so 20 years ago, by the open gaming license that Wizards of the Coast did when they brought out their 3rd edition role-playing game to allow people to build more products, third-party products. It's, to me, and this is what this whole year is going to be, is what the OSR, what going back to basics means to me. If you watch some of my other videos, you know that I started the hobby with some of the Palladium Books games and then dove into D&D, a D&D 2nd edition. And so that was my first introduction to the hobby, and I spent a lot of time, I spent a lot of effort, a lot of energy in 2nd edition AD&D, and I still to this day love that game. It wasn't until I got to college that I began to dive back into some of the older ideas. Now we're talking, earliest days of the internet, so it's not as easy as it is today to just jump online and find this, bevy of greatness. It's not, it wasn't at the time that I could just jump on and go to Wayne's Books and grab a bunch of vintage RPGs. So it was a little bit more difficult. It was actually like trying to find somebody who maybe had some stuff laying around that you could buy or beg or borrow. And so I began to look into earlier editions of the game and started to play things like basic D&D and 1st edition and some of the other offshoots of those kinds of things as well too. So what I want to do this next year is I want to dive into things. I want to talk about some of the fiction that's inspired that inspired the original game, and why does that kind of stuff do that? What ideas are taken from some of these classic novels, these great fantasy authors and science fiction authors that made the game the way it was? I want to take a look at that. I want to take a look at the history of the game as well too. I want to look into not only, and I draw heavily upon John Peterson's Playing at the World book, but there's some others as well too, but not only just like how the game itself was formed, how the ideas, how it grew, because everybody kind of knows some of that. We'll touch on that a bit. But I want to talk about like the mythology, where the creatures come from, and how this whole thing took shape through Robert E. Howard and through Tolkien and through all these other great people. And we'll go back even to the mythology of the things, the ancient Greeks and the ancient Egyptians and that kind of stuff as well too. So the history of our hobby as it pre-goes. I also want to take a look at some of the original games. I'm going to take a look at some of the original products, talk about things like that, how to create characters, how the game played, how it's different from today's style of game, that kind of stuff as well too. But I also want to talk about the influence on retro clones, on these OSR style games that emulate this kind of stuff, and why they've changed and what they've done to make this game so popular that it is in the hobby realm today. And that's what I want to do. I hope that you all come along. If you have some aspect of the back to basics idea that you'd like to see me cover, you'd like to see me research and do maybe a little bit of talk or a review on, please hit me down in the comments below. I'm going to go through a lot of different retro clones. I'm also going to talk about how great and how flexible the framework was of the original, Dungeons and Dragons game was, that it allowed so many other companies and so many other ideas to sort of bloom. So we're talking about things like, classically like Gamma World and Twilight 2000. We're also talking about how more modern things like Dark Places and Demigorgons from Bloat Games uses those OSR concepts to do a 80s style kids retro, like this Stranger Things idea, and how the concept of role playing and the structure of the original game was so flexible and so narrative enough that it allowed kind of games like that to sort of spring up across the board and stuff as well too. So 2020, back to basics. I am Questwise, and until next time, I am out. Hey there, fellow questing knights. If you're looking to collect vintage RPGs or would like to start and you don't know where to go, or if you're looking for a supplement to fill in that hole in your collection, I highly recommend Wayne's Books. Yeah, that's right. Wayne's Books since 2002 have sold thousands of vintage RPGs. I highly recommend them. I've used them in the past, and I have nothing but 100% satisfaction with their service. So if you get a chance, swing on over to Wayne's Books and pick up everything you'll need vintage RPG-wise. I'm Questwise, and until next time, I am out.